Live from the Washington, D.C. area, it's the Inside Scoop, EmeraldPlanet. All the ecology news that our viewers want to know. Now, here's your host, Executive Director of the EmeraldPlanet, Dr. Sam Lee Hancock.
Hello and welcome to the EmeraldPlanet as we come to you from Washington, D.C. in the United States, looking around the globe in 144 different nations, looking for the 1,000 best practices, the technologies, the services, and the products that are important for the 21st century. As we add 2 billion new souls by 2050, how are we going to be able to take care of all these people to provide the food, the fiber, the fuel, and the basic infrastructure that's needed to make sure they have a high and higher quality of life than ever before? Many people are saying we can't accommodate that many people on planet Earth, but as if you look at all the projections, the people are going to be here whether we're ready for them or not. And so we have an individual sitting beside me that's actually preparing the next generations as they move forward, looking at nature, conservation, and how we actually balance all of that in order to address severe climate change. Amy Beam, who is a nature educator and developer, she has 2 programs. One's called Kids Love Nature, and the other is Let's Go Beyond the Walls. I love those names, Amy.
Well, thank you.
Thank you for being with us on the Emerald Planet. Tell us a little bit about Kids Love Nature and Let's Go Beyond the Walls.
Beyond the Walls is a nature program that was developed for the several Montessori schools that I work in. And we take children outside onto the land in the immediate community every week. And Kids Love Nature goes beyond the school week. We have outdoor expeditions on weekends, we have summer programming, and we have a big thing coming up for Memorial Day weekend.
Bring up the first slides here, and let's look at these. This will give you an idea of what some of these programs look like. Dr. Maria Montessori, she had developed the Montessori nature of education. How did that inspire you, and why do you think that's important as far as the 2 programs that you have?
Well, Dr. Montessori did such wonderful work with children and created something that ongoing into the 21st century continues to work with children. And so when I was looking for a nature awareness program to get kids involved with nature, I followed her guidelines to have the children be having direct experiences that were sensorial experiences, so that they would have an immediate and intimate knowledge of what they were learning about. And in this case, it's about nature.
I think it's absolutely fantastic. And I'm still waiting for the slides to come up. They don't seem to be coming up on the screen. But anyway, looking at what you've done, you spent years, and it's just amazing the background you have. Spanish, drama, art, movement, all these different things.
That's right.
And one of my assistants was just looking at your photographs and said, oh, this is really all about dance and all that. Then I looked at your resume, and there it was, all of it. So it really fits together, your background, even though it's very broad, and what you're doing.
It's interesting because I didn't start out to be a nature teacher, but when I decided to shift over into that, it was because I saw a real need for it. And when I could see that the kids needed to do something more with nature, I wanted to find out who could do that and how that could be done. And I ended up being the one to do it.
Well, that's the whole thing about whoever volunteers gets to do the work, right?
Yes.
Now, looking at all this diverse background that you have, and then working with these Montessori schools, how has that opened up your world as far as having these youth that's so young but yet so eager to learn and looking towards the future, but still malleable so that they can really appreciate and enjoy nature in a very uninhibited manner?
Well, that's a really big question.
Good, that's why we're asking it.
And what happened was I was working with children at this age since I was 12, really, with babysitting. And I just started to notice that kids started to decline in their happiness quotient, is what I'll call it.
Right.
They started to become a lot more sick. They started to do a lot less work in the classroom. They were more distractible. And they were less happy. There was a lot more mopiness or bullying going on, aggression was going on.
Right.
And I just felt that it was because they weren't getting their yayas out. They weren't getting outside into nature.
Well, looking at these young eyes here, I always love these types of photographs because you're literally looking into their eyes and they're sharing the world as they're experiencing at that very moment. What are you seeing through these eyes?
Oh, that's a rich question. We found some clay by the stream, and we started to pull that clay out of the stream and make things with it. We actually went on to make clay beads, which we cooked in a little fire and made hard into a real pottery ceramic bead. And then we strung them with rope that we made out of plants, yucca leaves that were there. And so what the children were able to do is to see how things are sourced from the earth and how they can do it themselves. And that means that they start to have that ability to recognize that everything comes from someplace and it's all from the earth.
Yeah, that's when I was raised, we had a very large farming and ranching operation, and one of the gentlemen was in war with my dad, called and said, both of my daughters think that milk literally grows in a glass bottle. I need to come out and see how it really happens. And he came out and spent the whole day, and the wonderment that those two young ladies had was just amazing. But this young man here, I tell you, this is just a sense of wonderment as well, as he's looking at these baskets, and yet he's on this, you know, this very friendly old dead tree at the same time.
He's looking beyond the baskets at the things that he might be able to put in the baskets. We go and collect different things, and we might make a nice nature display on that stump and then talk about it, or we might use those things to build a little fairy house or gnome home or some other little creative structure. And it all just opens up their excitement, their curiosity, their sense of wonder, which leads to further investigation of where these things come from and what they might have belonged to. Like this little feather in this tiny hand, that would lead to an inquiry of, you know, what bird that was and what that bird was doing and how that bird lost the feather and which part of the bird the feather came from. And so this goes from a direct experience into further inquiry.
Well, I think this all fits very nicely as far as EmeraldPlanet, because we want things, the programs, the projects, the organizations to be very real, doing very practical things, but yet making a profound change as far as the environment is concerned and the world is concerned. And what you're doing is that you're actually putting them into the world itself and allowing the experience in a very direct manner.
And a lot of people have a lot of hesitancy in doing that because they don't know enough about nature, is what they're feeling. And I felt like that myself, but I was very fortunate that I found a lot of great organizations that had specific trainings. There were wilderness schools doing a training called the Art of Mentoring that helped me to just follow sensory exercises and core routines with the children, where all I needed to do was bring my curiosity and be aware of hazards so that I could keep the children safe. And then I could follow the children into their passions and their curiosity.
Well, you can see the curiosity at work right here with these children, and this is really a fantastic photograph because of all the diversity that you actually see incorporated into this, and they're all in the midst of discovery together with no barriers and no mental breaks in any way.
That's right, and it's not something that they're learning by watching a television screen. They were able to pick this little moth up and carry it around a bit, and now they know the name of it and they remember, you know, what they've learned about it. And little by little, as we explore, they learn quite a few things without me having to provide any sort of curricular motivation. We just go out and find what is available out there and then follow it to our knowledge about it.
Now, looking at how do you constantly develop and continue to improve the information that you're sharing, and also just the structure of what you're doing through these two programs, Kids Love Nature and Let's Go Beyond the Walls?
The really exciting thing is that we had to develop communities. So we had to reach out to other organizations. I joined the Board of Ancestral Knowledge, which teaches primitive skills. And I also joined the 8 Shields organization, which has a website forum called Village Talk. And those things really help. I also have really great mentors, a woman, Kate White, with Bedfordshire. I can't remember, and she'll be upset with me. And then also Mark Morey at Institute for Natural Learning. And they help me when I have questions and direct me where I need to go. And there's also something by Richard Louv called the Children in Nature Network that's extremely valuable because everybody posts on there what their experiences are.
That's fantastic. So you're building a sense of community, but not only just a sense of community, you're building a real community of subject matter experts, and then you're bringing them into the children through your experiences. And then also, in turn, you're sharing your enriched experiences with many others. So this community really goes international. And
I just joined the community. It was Belvedere Healing Arts, by the way. And that community not only is current on the website, and now that we can travel around, we can go there, but also it's drawn from indigenous societies worldwide. And what has happened is that people studied indigenous societies that existed on a piece of land successfully for more than 1,000 years, and they copied their best practices in order to create these organizations.
And that's what we're going to be doing through EmeraldPlanet, going to these 144 nations and looking for the best practices. And we certainly plan to incorporate the indigenous peoples in that. And actually, we're going to focus on them and then go out to the more general community, which is a novel way of doing that. How do you allow people to replicate your successes and to go beyond the walls?
There's a really simple way. I encourage them to purchase a couple of books. Coyote's Guide to Connecting with Nature, Richard Louv's book, Last Child in the Woods, and also The Nature Principle by Rich Louv.
I think it's absolutely fantastic. Amy Beam, who is a nature educator and developer, Kids Love Nature and Let's Go Beyond the Walls, has been sharing with us about her experiences of taking young kids from, I understand, 3 months to 6 years, which is absolutely incredible. To create the EmeraldPlanet.
This year, 28,000 Americans will be diagnosed with oral cancer. Every year, 7,000 Americans die of oral cancer.
I'm Eva Cohen, and I'm an oral cancer survivor. I didn't fit the profile. I didn't smoke or drink. I had no family history of cancer, no family history of cancer. I was 31 years old. 31 years old. I went to see my dentist about a sore in my mouth that wouldn't heal. It was oral cancer. I had to have a radical neck dissection and a portion of my tongue reconstructed. I didn't know if I was going to live or die.
I'm Surgeon General Richard Carmona. The survival rate for oral cancer is only 50%. Oral cancer can happen to anyone. If you have a sore or lesion in your mouth that doesn't heal within 2 weeks, see your dentist. Early detection is the key.
Early detection saves lives. I know.
1 in 8 Americans goes hungry. One idea helped change that. A community started a garden that blossomed into farmers markets. 1 in 6 children lives in poverty. One group of women found an answer by opening a daycare center that their neighbors could afford. Today, 36 million Americans live in poverty, but one by one, people are helping themselves and each other to change the picture of poverty to one of hope. For easy ways you can help, visit povertyusa.org.
2 words for you. Pop quiz. Ready? Name any funny movie. A drama. Name a mystery. And one more thing. Name the movie your kids saw today in science class.
Know what really matters. Know about your kid's school. And know about your kid. Find out 100 ways to know more, do more.
We're back to the Inside Scoop Emerald Planet. Here again, your host, Dr. Sam.
Hello, I'm Dr. Sam Hancock, President, Executive Director of EmeraldPlanet in Washington, D.C., as we come to you looking for those 1,000 best practices, the technologies, the services, and the products that are making a difference as we move through the 21st century. And also we're looking for the people that are making a difference, providing the leadership, the open communications, the transparency to allow for the Earth to accommodate another 2 billion people are going to be joining us by the middle of this 21st century. And so how are we going to be able to take care and protect nature, to conserve the resources we have, but at the same time provide an increasing level of quality of life? We have a gentleman that's working at this on a day-to-day basis. His name is Frank Lowenstein. He is a climate adaptation strategist with the Nature Conservancy, and it's also called Protecting Nature, Preserving Life. I really like that tagline. And then Amy Beam, who is with her 2 programs. One's called Kids Love Nature and the other is Let's Go Beyond the Walls, is going to be here in case we lose Frank by Skype. So Frank, welcome to the Emerald Planet.
Thank you so much, Sam.
I'm going to bring up the first...
you will be able to hear me, although I was having a bit of trouble hearing your...
We can hear you. Don't worry about it.
Fingers crossed.
Don't worry about it. We'll take care of you on that point. Anyway, tell us a little bit about what is the Nature Conservancy?
So the Nature Conservancy is a nonprofit organization. We're supported by public contributions, and we work around the world to protect the diversities of habitats that all life depends on, including, of course, people.
Well, looking at that, and you're like the Emerald Planet, we're looking for the technologies, the services, products, and the people are making a difference. How do you identify the ones that you really want to focus on that can be collaborators with such a large organization like the Nature Conservancy?
Well, one of our past presidents used to say that we're not a multinational organization, even though we do work in about 35 countries, but a multi-local organization. And everywhere we work, we are focused on communities, we're focused on work on the ground, and we're focused on how do we translate that work into leveraged outcomes that really benefit people around the world. So how do we build up from the community level to really a global platform and global impact? It's a neat model.
Yeah, it really is, and collaboration is the name of the game. It's something I started with the Emerald Planet back in 1973. And so it's really important that we continue that collaboration, actually expand it because of the numbers of people we do have on the planet. But many, I shouldn't say many, but some talk about climate change as if it may not even be happening. How do you know that climate change is going on, and what's some of the things that people need to be looking for so they actually understand the change that's going on around them?
Sure. So as we look around the world, we've been talking about climate change since the mid-1980s. I first wrote about it in terms of sea level rise and the impact that it was going to have on our coasts in the mid-1980s. So scientists have been aware of this and worried about it now for 30 years. So we can now actually see in the data the change that has happened in temperatures and the changes that are happening in precipitation. So for example, last year here in the US, we set 362 new all-time high temperature records and no low temperature records. And by all-time high, I don't mean like the hottest August 1st ever. We set over 34,000 of those daily all-time high temperature records. I mean the hottest that has ever been seen in a location. The kind of temperatures like the temperature that hit Los Angeles in the summer of 2011 when the Weather Service's thermometer broke at 113 degrees because it wasn't really designed to go that high.
Well, looking at this map here as far as the floods, there's a number of incidents that are going on, and you're talking about into the tens of thousands, and yet the climate change, these weather events are becoming much more severe, actually even more violent than ever before, and the intrusion of drought as far as the farmlands are concerned is something that's very real. Tell us a little bit about the floods, and maybe use that as the proverbial canary in the coal mine as far as where we're headed on climate change.
Sure. It's only in the last maybe 5 to 10 years that scientists have realized that it's not the average change in climate that's going to affect us. It's really the extremes. Because if you change the average, since there's a lot of variation in the weather, year to year, day to day, if you change the average, the new average is probably still within what people have been dealing with for some time. But if you change the extremes, you go off screen. You go into new territory that nobody's ever seen. Things like the heat wave that hit Russia in 2010 and killed 56,000 people. And there hasn't been one of those, anything like that in the last 500 years. We're seeing the same thing in the precipitation cycle. The oceans have absorbed a lot of the heat that the planet has already retained. Again, I want to emphasize this isn't about models. We now have progressed far enough that we can see it in the real day-to-day data. The oceans have absorbed most of that heat, and consequently there's more water evaporating out of the oceans, and the whole hydrologic cycle has more energy in it, more variability. We see that here in the U.S., and this is what the map is showing. This is from the recently completed National Climate Assessment, and it shows the amount of rain that is falling in the very heaviest thunderstorms, the heaviest rainfall events, the events that send you running for the car or running from the car to your house. And across the whole United States, the amount of precipitation falling in those heaviest rain events has increased. At the same time, we're facing the largest drought declaration in U.S. history just last summer. And we're seeing these same patterns in many, many parts of the world. I've done a lot of work in Chiapas, in Ecuador, and in both those places, they're seeing unprecedented conditions. This word unprecedented is really the word that we need to get used to in thinking about and dealing with climate change.
Well, looking at the country of Australia, where you have the international airport being closed 2 and 3 days, even more in a row in Sydney, because of all the dust storms that are coming off the Nullarbor Plains and out of the central desert region of Australia. Many people can't, even in the records, remember when something like this has happened. But this is going on across the globe, where we're seeing more extreme drought, and many people on the west coast of the United States certainly understand hotter, drier, and with the increase as far as the forest fires are going on, severity of the forest fires, things are becoming more dramatic all the time. But the Nature Conservancy is really focused on and very much involved with conservation of natural resources. And conservation, that's actually how we started back in 1973, conservation, energy independence, and now we have a full cycle back to this, because that's really one of the highest impacts but lowest cost ways to address climate change and also to accommodate more people. How is the Nature Conservancy really leveraging conservation as we move through the 21st century to maximize the impact?
Sure. So we already are, even without realizing it, our societies are built to have a certain natural resilience, to rely on natural systems. So we rely on forests and floodplains to capture and slow down floods and to purify our water. And so the Conservancy is really trying to identify those places where nature is really providing benefits to people in the face of these greater extremes that we're seeing from climate change, and to articulate that benefit for people, to quantify it, to make it something that we actually plan for instead of something that just sort of happens. So for example, in terms of those western forest fires that you mentioned, when the forest degrades, we get these catastrophic fires that produce well beyond the normal range of variability in what the forest can adapt to. Then when these heavier rains come, you get massive floods coming down, and you get events like what happened in 2011 again in Albuquerque, where the city of Albuquerque had to close its water intakes from the Rio Grande for 2 weeks because there was too much sediment and charcoal in the river from floods that came in the wake of these fires. So if we can manage the forest to be more resilient, to be more, to not have such catastrophic damage from climate change, that in turn allows us to protect the water supply for Albuquerque.
Well, looking at this, Frank, is really, when we're looking at protecting the water, in turn we're protecting the earth and the air, and in turn if we're protecting the air, then the whole thing is we need to be taking care of the water and the soils. Amy is here with us, Amy Beam, who is Kids Love Nature and
Hello
Let's
again,
Go
Amy.
Beyond the Walls. Since she's backing up for you in case we lose you by Skype, I asked her to share a question with you. Amy?
Sure.
I want to know what we can do from here in Washington, D.C. What do you think we can do?
Oh, well, I think there are things that we all can do. But here in the United States, we're privileged to live in the United States, which is both one of the more wealthy and more influential nations in the world. And Washington, of course, is the heart of all of that. And so I used to live in Washington when I grew up in Bethesda. And my memory is, just the people that I was hanging out with, if you think about it, everyone knows somebody. And everyone knows somebody who's going to know somebody else. You may think that you're in a big city, but you're in a very small pool compared to the rest of the world in terms of accessing those points of influence. So there are things that we each can do in our own lives to help protect the climate, to make our community more resilient. There are projects like the 4 Mile Run project that the Northern Virginia Council of Governments is doing that is a great restoration project that's going to increase the resilience of that stream and is going to create beautiful parks. And you can volunteer for things like that. But there's also this question of political action.
Frank, we're going to lose you in a minute. We got about 5 seconds left.
Okay. Washington's the heart of that. Go for it.
That's a good close. Anyway, thank you for being with us. Frank Lowenstein, Climate Adaptation Strategy Leader, the National Conservancy, Protecting Nature, Preserving Life. Frank is going to be back with us later on in the program. We thank you for being with us to learn about how we're going to address the environment as we create the Emerald Planet.
This is firstgov.gov, where we're obsessed with getting you government information.
Brand new student loan applications on the site, baby. This calls for a celebration. Where's your uncle?
So in the end, it was either take the astronaut gig or come work here. What can I say? Duty called.
Dude, that's my cop.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah. No, I'm pretty sure that's Sam's cop.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah. No. Sam's? No.
Just log on or email us and get what you need.
C, change of address form. That's how it's done. D, driver's license renewal.
E, emailing Social Security information.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Nice, we'll allow it. All right, Ed.
What are those? Government surplus cars for auction.
You posted those online last time.
No, you did.
I'm posting them online this time!
For all your government information, firstgov.gov.
Oh, what have we got here? Sometimes you feel tired. You can't seem to lose those extra pounds off your midsection. And your joints hurt when you take the stairs. Well, you're getting older. But I'm happy to say that there's some simple things we can do to keep you happy and healthy for years to come. We can also lower your risk for some serious diseases the older population is often subject to. Proper nutrition is more important than ever. Your body has changed, not as many treats. A basic exercise plan, lots of walks and fresh air, and most importantly, come and see me for twice-yearly checkups to help ensure the best possible quality of life. Now, how does that sound? Good boy.
Improve the quality of life for your elderly pet. Schedule twice yearly checkups that include preventive care and regular lab work. A message from the veterinary members of the American Animal Hospital Association.
We're back to the Inside Scoop Emerald Planet. Here again, your host, Dr. Sam.
Hello and welcome to the Emerald Planet as we come to you from Washington, D.C. in the United States, looking around the globe in 144 different nations, looking for the localities that are making a difference as we move through the 21st century. And in looking at the 21st century, we're looking, of course, at the people, but also the technologies, the services, and the products that truly are making a difference and can be shared across all these different national borders, all the way down into local communities. And so the Emerald Planet is the link for allowing the dialogue and also for people to share the resources that are available. We have a gentleman that's going to be joining us from Colorado, Sebastian E. Africano, who is the International Director for an organization called Trees, Water, and People. And sitting right beside me is Amy Beam, who is with her own organization and has two programs within Washington, D.C. And she's going to be here to back up as far as in case we lose Sebastian by Skype. So Sebastian, welcome.
Thank you very much. Can you hear me okay?
I can hear you fine, and welcome all the way from Colorado by Skype. And Amy's here in case we lose you. We're going to put her instantly to work. So tell us a little bit about this very intriguing name, Trees, Water, and People.
Well, Trees,
and
Water...
I'm going to bring up a slide, too, if I can, to show.
Sure.
We have a number of slides from your organization.
All right.
There we go.
Great. Well, Trees, Water, and People is a 15-year organization out of Fort Collins, Colorado. I'm actually from Bethesda, Maryland, so it's good to be back in the D.C. area, at least virtually. But TWP was founded by two foresters interested in international issues, resource issues, and also the rapid rate of deforestation that was being seen around the world over the past several decades. And so they founded the organization to really focus on ways to both increase the supply of trees and protect watersheds, reduce disaster risk in the developing world, but also a way to reduce demand on the forests by implementing efficient biomass using technologies like fuel-efficient clean cook stoves.
Well, the whole thing about it, Sebastian, many people don't really think about it very much, but the tree is the nexus as far as soil, air, and water quality and cleanliness, and even addressing the ravages that are going on around the globe as far as climate change is concerned. So your work abroad in numerous countries, as well as with the Indian tribes within the United States, what are you seeing about the attitude towards trees and actually expanding the trees so you're increasing the watershed and many other benefits of the canopy?
Well, we see trees in a lot of different ways. I mean, they're practical in the sense that they provide livelihoods. They also sustain soils and hillsides, provide protection to community in extreme rain events. And so, you know, also with what Frank was talking about, a lot of high variation in the rain patterns all over the world, trees can be seen as a more robust and dependable source of both food and nutrition, as well as timber, etc., resources, than crops, than annual crops in some cases. Last year when we had droughts all over the U.S. and all over the world, really, you saw a lot of farmers really falling back on mangoes, fruits, citrus, etc., because crops just didn't work out if you didn't have access to water.
Well, I know you made reference to Frank. Let's just put in there Frank Lowenstein, who is the Climate Adaptation Strategy Leader for the National Conservancy. We'll give him another plug there. But looking at what you're doing, I know that you're incorporating these highly efficient stoves. Also, I know that you're into solar stoves and many other different ways of lowering the impact on the forest and to cut down on the use of wood as far as a combustible material. How are you reaching out to communities and educate them to look at different ways of actually preparing their food, heating their homes, and providing light in many cases within the structures where they live?
Yeah, well, as you mentioned before, we work both in Central America and the Caribbean, as well as here in the Great Plains with Native American tribes. And kind of the common thread of the work that we do is energy poverty. So families not being able to meet their basic needs with clean and affordable energy. So in Central America, we address that through cooking. Families for almost 10,000 years have been cooking over open fires using firewood and or charcoal in some cases to cook their meals, not so much heat their homes unless you're in the highlands of, say, Guatemala. But this has many effects. One effect is rapid consumption of forest resources. Another effect is rapid consumption of household economy in urban areas where fuel is purchased. And then there's indoor air pollution. Up in the Native American reservations, a lot of people are dependent on heating fuel for the winter, and when there's spikes in price, it becomes unaffordable. A lot of people use firewood that's also extremely scarce, and so we work there through the context of household heating by installing solar heating systems that can reduce propane bills in the wintertime by up to 30%. So just taking a little bit of the burden, the economic burden, and also the health burdens of having either clean, dirty energy or unaffordable energy in the household, taking a little of that burden off the family is, how essentially we get their participation and get them really excited about doing this type of work.
Well, I know the work that Amy's doing as far as her Kids Love Nature and Let's Go Beyond the Walls, really focusing on these the new generations that are going to be really taking the three of us into 2050. And I want to go back to this slide that we just had up, Sebastian. I thought this really tied in very nicely to what Amy's doing and also what Frank with the Nature Conservancy, because it looks like a lot of your work is really focused on the youth and to actually educate them as young as possible to know the benefits of trees, but also how to protect the environment around them. So tell us a little bit about how you work with the youth and to involve them at whatever age they are to really protect, enhance their environment, and include their families in that.
So we work with local partners in Central America and in Haiti that have relationships with municipalities, communities, and community-based organizations, and that's really how we do a lot of our outreach. So partnering with local schools, especially around any environmental celebration or Arbor Day celebration, is a great way to get in front of folks and share with kids the importance of doing this type of work, reforestation, the importance of getting the open fire out of your household, the importance of, say, swapping a kerosene lamp out for a solar lighting system. And you're right. I mean, they're the ones that catch on the quickest and see the opportunity, and also can drive that change for the next generation.
Yeah, it's just like the 4-H in the United States that was really started. One of the underlying principles was to teach the youth so that you reach the parents, who in many cases back in the turn of the 19th century really were not as educated as they are today and needed that direct link from the youth back into the home. Amy's here to cover for us in case we lose you by Skype, and so she gets the next question.
I want to know what you do that makes your organization effective. What are your strategies and how do you build those communities?
Well, really, it's I think the secret to Trees, Water, and People's success is the relationships and networks that we've built over the years, the rapport that we've built for the communities with the communities that we work with. For instance, right now we're close to inaugurating the Red Cloud Renewable Energy Center up in Pine Ridge, South Dakota, where we'll be attracting tribes from around the American West to train essentially renewable energy technicians there. That's available to youth and adults as vocational training, transferring existing skills into renewable energy skills. In Central America, we have vast networks from 15 years of doing work through local partners there, with community-based organizations through which we do our cook stove work and really reach those communities that don't have access to basic energy, and also our solar energy work, which has been a tremendous new program in bringing lighting systems to families that are off the grid and will likely be for quite some time.
Well, this whole thing about the distributive power, distributive energy is really taking hold not only just in the work that you're doing in these, in many cases, marginalized communities, but in downtown major cities such as places Washington, D.C. and New York and Chicago, Detroit, and places like that. So what lessons learned do you have that you're doing in these at-risk communities that now you can bring back in literally into some of the largest cities on the planet?
Focus on livelihoods. You know, a person will pay a lot more attention to you if they can see a potential livelihood coming out of the recommendations that you're giving them, but whether it be technologies or just practices, approaches. You know, and I think that's the same here in the U.S. That's ubiquitous. So we really focus on developing hard skills and really getting people to go into the workforce or go into business as an entrepreneur, either constructing clean cook stoves or manufacturing and assembling solar heating panels, you know, you name it. The livelihood component and the focus on people really is going to make this this work, because otherwise it's just another top-down approach, which we can't really afford at the moment just because of the number of people entering the planet on a daily basis, the resources they're going to need and will likely consume. You really need to have people as part of the solution.
Well, looking at that, we're almost running out of time, Sebastian, and you're going to be back with us again in a little bit. But what are the long-range plans for the trees, water, and people as we head towards 2050, say on a 5, 10, 15-year basis? And you've got about 30 seconds to summarize all that up.
All right. Really looking for those entrepreneurial opportunities to get people involved in green livelihoods, also establishing training centers. We've had tremendous success in South Dakota and Pine Ridge with the Renewable Energy Skills Development Center. We're developing a similar one in Nicaragua to focus on biomass energy technologies and how to deliver them most appropriately to consume resources more effectively and efficiently.
Well, we had Sebastian Africano, who is the International Director of Trees, Water, and People, coming into us by Skype with Amy Bean sitting right here in the studio with me as the backup. And Sebastian, thank you for being with us. You'll be back with us shortly. And thank you for being with us as we create the Emerald Planet.
Some dreams are universal. Dreams that inspire us. Multiple sclerosis is a devastating disease that changes lives forever. The National MS Society does more for people with MS than any organization in the world. But we can't do it alone. To get involved, visit us online at nationalmssociety.org. or call 1-800-FIGHT-MS. This is why we're here. Because nobody dreams of having multiple sclerosis.
What's wrong with this picture? Half of young Americans can't locate economic powers like Japan and India. 20% can't even find the Pacific Ocean. Without geography, our children aren't ready for the world. Geography is everywhere. It's incredible creatures, rhythm, fashion, flavor. It's economics and politics. It's change. Understanding connections between people and places is critical in the 21st century. That's why we created mywonderfulworld.org. Go there now for your free parent and teacher action kits and give our kids the power of global knowledge. Because kids who understand our world today can succeed in it tomorrow.
We're back to the Inside Scoop Emerald Planet. Here again, your host, Dr. Sam.
Hello and welcome to the Emerald Planet as we come to you from Washington, D.C. in the United States. I'm Dr. Sam Hancock, the President, Executive Director of EmeraldPlanet, EmeraldPlanet TV, and we're looking around the globe in 144 different nations looking for those 1,000 best practices, the technologies, the services, the products, and the people are making a difference as we move through the 21st century. We have an absolute outstanding panel. They're going to be talking with us about climate change, climate adaptation, natural resource conservation, native species, a whole host of topics all focused on the planet as we move towards 2050. Sitting with me in the studio is Amy Beam, who is a nature educator and developer for programs called Kids Love Nature and Let's Go Beyond the Walls. Then we have Frank Lowenstein, a climate adaptation strategy leader for the Natural Conservancy. Tagline is Protecting Nature, Preserving Life. And then Sebastian Africano, who is the International Director for Trees, Water, and People. And welcome all.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Glad to have you with us. Frank, I'm going to start off with you. And this really goes about the deniability as far as climate change is concerned and what you're seeing. Because some people are saying there really isn't any climate change. Humankind is not having an impact, a negative impact on the climate. So tell us what you're seeing as far as the Nature Conservancy is concerned and why you believe that climate change is real.
So the evidence is pretty overwhelming. Not only are there extensive measurements of the changes that have actually occurred in climate, in our climate, which are well summarized for the U.S. in the new National Climate Assessment that just came out. It's 1,100 pages long. A significant chunk of that is documenting the changes that have already occurred. It's also the case that it's not just the government of the United States that's where all of our scientific agencies agree that climate change has occurred, is occurring, and will progress further. It's also every other country in the world's scientific agencies, whether they're our close allies or whether they are countries that perhaps disagree with us politically. The scientific consensus is overwhelming. Just last week, there was an article that evaluated 12,000 scientific papers. 97% of them support the fact that climate change is occurring and humans are the cause behind it. But for the Nature Conservancy, we manage a network of preserves, of wild places around the world. We've done so since 1951, and we can see the changes happening every day in nature, and we can see how that then impacts the people who live, in some cases, on the preserves or on the national parks that we've helped preserve in other countries, but in other cases around those and are dependent on those natural resources for clean water, clean air, food, livelihoods, and it's changing in ways that they've never seen before.
Yeah, and it's really profound, and it's just like friends of ours are working out in the South Pacific, working both with indigenous peoples and majority populations. And some of these atolls, 3 feet above sea level, you're 500 miles away from the nearest major city or seaport, and now you're 2.5 feet above sea level. And the waves are crashing in on the islands and atolls as they've never done in the last 1,000 years or so of recorded history in these places. So change is among us. Sebastian, there are many projects that you're working on within Trees, Water, and People that really have direct impact every day on the lives of marginalized or at-risk populations, both within the United States and South America and Africa. What do we need to be considering that you're learning in your best practices, how we're going to be able to leverage these very innovative technologies and products as we add 2 billion more people to the planet by 2050?
Yeah, it's a good question, and it's an enormous challenge. We really focus on, like I said, the livelihood aspects and finding that economic driver that will help auto-disseminate the techniques, practices, products that we work with. We work a lot with climate change mitigation in terms of just planting over 4.7 million trees since we first started in 1998, and installing over 50,000, almost 60,000 clean cook stoves in Central America and the Caribbean. So those are mitigation strategies that not only improve the climate outlook and reduce emissions or sequester emissions, but also have tangible impacts at the household level. And that will essentially, those tangible impacts are what's going to drive their dissemination. If someone, like I said, is either saving money or finding a way to make a living working with these technologies or approaches, you're going to have a lot less work to do, and the work will auto-disseminate. So we look for those opportunities to really tap into and leverage those economic drivers so that these technologies and practices can get out to as many people as possible.
Well, it's amazing what you're doing with the within the trees, water, and people, and the populations. I was just recently in Mexico, and we were up in the monarch butterfly preserve, and of course these are many at-risk populations and many indigenous tribes well before the Spanish came into South America. And it's amazing how they've energized themselves, got involved, and organized themselves in ways where they're actually disseminating these high efficiency cook stoves, solar ovens, and also these special latrines they use so that they can actually keep the water more pure, but at the same time take that and put it back into the soil for raising crops. So it's amazing the work that you're doing, and we congratulate you on that. Amy, you're working with really young children down, I understand, I think I have this right, about 3 months or so, up to 6 years. What impacts are you seeing at this very young age, which is really where we need to start, so that they embrace nature, but they embrace the ways that we need to protect nature and conserve nature? How do you see that they're learning to understand a very complex ecosystem on the earth?
You're absolutely right that this is exactly where we need to begin. Children need to be taken out into nature in a non-threatening way and be allowed to absolutely fall in love with it. And this is because people protect what they love. And when you take a child out into nature and let them explore and question with their curiosity and their joy driving them, they will automatically begin to recognize those ecosystems that are present in their place. And when they go to a new place, they will be able to immediately recognize that there are new systems there, and they'll become curious about those. And if they're intact and in a good condition, they'll fall in love with those as well. What we mustn't do at the early age is frighten them about the rainforest devastation and that sort of thing, because it has been proven that that creates a disconnect. They're overwhelmed and they don't know what to do about it. And they may just turn away from nature conservation altogether. But if we can introduce children at an early age to the beauty and the wonder of nature, they will grow up to enjoy it and then protect it and understand how it all works and what they need to do to take care of it.
Well, what you're doing, and also with Frank and Sebastian, is EmeraldPlanet is, we say, we're the good news guys and ladies, and so we're trying to put out the message as far as what really works and how we can, in a very practical and natural way, to improve and enhance the environment. And that leads me right into, Frank, with the great emphasis that you have in your organization on conservation to address severe climate change. Why is conservation of natural resources such a progressive way in reality and lowers costs, but at the same time it improves the climate around us and will help us as far as dealing with bringing on all these future generations?
Yeah, well, you said it very well. It's often the lowest cost approach. It has all these co-benefits, not only in terms of climate mitigation that comes with conserving forests that Sebastian mentioned, where trees actually suck carbon out of the atmosphere and turn it into wood, and so they're actually our natural carbon removal method. But it also provides benefits to people in terms of livelihoods, be it fisheries from coral reefs or restored floodplains, tourism opportunities, or just beauty, that Amy spoke to, the love of nature. So there's all these co-benefits. And really, what climate change is going to mean for society at large is greatly increased costs. And then we all know that right now society at large isn't exactly in a place to absorb greatly increased costs. So we're going to need to do things the most efficient way. We're going to need to do things in ways that that are simple, that maintain themselves, that anyone can apply, and that sure describes working with nature. Amy spoke to getting kids out in there and how much they love it, how much there's a natural affinity for it. Professor E.O. Wilson from Harvard has spoken about that as biophilia, the love of biology and of nature that's sort of innate to all of us. It's kind of a wonky way to put it. I truly believe that. I think nature is the solution that we need to turn to first and not forget about.
This is going to be quick. We have about 1 minute to split between Sebastian and Amy. Sebastian, what 2 or 3 broad national policies do you think that we should try to implement in North America and around the globe can have a real impact? And try to be quick if you can, because I want to have Amy as the last word.
Right. Giving policy recommendations under the threat of a ticking clock is not my forte, but if I had to say anything, just really trying to maintain at least a margin of a threshold of justice, in the communities that we work in terms of employment conditions, access to resources. I'm making reference here to Pine Ridge Reservation, which has a steady unemployment rate of 80 to 84%. And really finding those leverage opportunities.
Sebastian, we're going to lose you because we're going to credits and we're going to be exiting. But Amy Beam and Frank Lowenstein and Sebastian Africano, yes, I'll spit it out there. Thank you for being with us. Excellent job, everybody. And we look forward to being with you. Thank you.